The memory of that night at the Birchwood Asylum is etched into me, not like a scar, but like a stain that seeped into my bones. And I need to tell you about it, not as some spooky campfire tale, but exactly how it happened, because the lie we told everyone, that we got spooked by a raccoon and ran, is a weight I can't carry anymore. It was late October, and the cold wasn't the crisp, festive kind. It was a damp chill that got into your joints. My friends Mike and Chloe were bored, scrolling through urban exploration forums on Chloe's laptop in my dingy apartment, the blue light painting their faces in the dark. Mike was the bravado, the guy who'd jump first and think later, his laughter always a little too loud. Chloe was the skeptic, the documentarian, who believed every ghost story had a leaky pipe or a drafty window at its heart. Me? I was just along for the ride, desperate for any adventure that wasn't my own crushing student loan anxiety. The dare wasn't even serious. Mike pointed at a grainy photo of Birchwood's broken facade. "I bet you $100 you won't spend an hour in the basement," he'd said, grinning at Chloe. She'd shot back, "I bet you 200 you're too scared to follow me in." And just like that, it was a plan. We fueled up on gas station coffee and cheap energy drinks, the sugary tang doing nothing to cut through the strange, quiet tension that settled in the car as we left the streetlights behind. The asylum didn't loom out of the darkness dramatically. It sort of condensed into view, a sprawling, low-slung monster of brick and iron, darker than the sky around it. The silence was the first thing that felt wrong. No crickets, no distant highway hum, just a thick, absorbing quiet that made our whispered curses sound blasphemous. We found the basement window near the back, a ground-level portal of grime-caked glass someone had already smashed. The hole was small, and the act of squeezing through, the cold brick scraping against my back, the smell of wet earth and decay flooding my senses, felt less like an entry and more like being swallowed. Inside, the darkness was absolute, a physical thing our flashlight beams seemed to push against rather than pierce. The air was warm and still, that sour medicinal smell underpinned by something else, something organic and forgotten, like a pile of old potatoes rotting in a closed cupboard. We navigated a labyrinth of low-ceiling corridors, our lights catching peeling paint that hung in fleshy strips, doorways leading into tiny, cell-like rooms. The rooms held the ghost imprints of suffering. Metal bed frames bolted to the floor, their thin mattresses reduced to stained, mouse-chewed husks, and on the walls, faint scratches that could have been tally marks or just the settling of the building. Mike's bravado came out as loud, forced jokes that echoed too much. Chloe was quietly filming everything, her camera's tiny red eye a point of modernity in the ancient gloom. We found the treatment room at the end of a particularly narrow hall. The door was ajar, and pushing it open felt like violating a tomb. The room was larger, dominated by a heavy, chair-like device in the center, its leather straps hanging loose, its metal fittings glinting dully. A tray of tools sat on a stand nearby. Rusted, yes, but arranged with a terrifying precision. It was here that the atmosphere shifted. The playful fear evaporated, replaced by a dense, watchful pressure. My skin prickled. Chloe's camera emitted a soft beep and then died. "Battery," she muttered, but her voice was thin. Mike's heavy-duty flashlight flickered once, twice, and went out with a final pop, plunging us into a blackness so complete I felt dizzy. The only light was the weak, bluish glow from my phone screen. In that sudden, suffocating silence, the sounds began. Not the groans of the building, but a deliberate, slow SHHFFF drag. SHHFFF drag coming from the corridor we just left. Accompanying it was a wet, rhythmic click-click-click, like a tongue against the roof of a mouth. Mike whispered, "It's just the wind in a pipe," but his hand on my arm was vice-tight. Then the voice. It didn't boom or scream. It was a dry, rasping whisper, so intimately close it felt like the words were forming inside my own ear canal. "Stay for your treatment." Panic is a chemical fire. It burned through all reason. We ran, not in an orderly flight, but in a blind, screaming, animalistic scramble. My phone light jerked and bounced, creating a strobe effect of nightmare snapshots. A flying strip of peeling paint. Chloe's terrified face, Mike's back disappearing around a corner. The dragging sound didn't chase us, it paralleled us, just beyond the wall to our left, keeping perfect pace. The click, 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 now a frantic metronome to our pounding hearts. That sour smell intensified, clinging to the back of my throat. We took turns at random, desperate to lose it, but the sound was always there, a step behind, a step ahead. I have a fragmented memory of stumbling into a room full of broken porcelain, sinks or bedpans, and the sound of them shattering underfoot was swallowed by the asylum's hungry silence almost instantly. When we finally saw the faint gray rectangle of the broken window, it felt like a miracle. We clawed our way out, tearing clothes and skin on the jagged glass, and collapsed on the dew-wet grass, gasping, sobbing, the clean cold air a shock to our lungs. We sat in Chloe's car, heaters on full blast, shaking uncontrollably. We made the pact then, through chattering teeth. We tell no one the real story. It was too insane, too damaging. We agreed it was a raccoon, a freak gust of wind, our imaginations. We would believe the lie. It worked, for a day. But the next morning, as I scrolled through my phone to delete the blurry photos, I found a video file I didn't remember taking. It was short, maybe 7 seconds of jostling, chaotic footage from my phone, clearly shot during our panicked run. You can hear our ragged breathing, the slam of a door, my own choke sob. The light swings wildly, then catches the mouth of a side corridor we had just passed. And there, leaning out from the shadows of that doorway, is a tall, pale shape. It's not pursuing us. It's already ahead. Its form is elongated, indistinct, but its face, a pale, stretched oval with dark, sunken pits for eyes, is turned directly toward the lens. And as the light passes over it, you can see its thin lips are moving in perfect sync with a rasping whisper still ringing in my ears. Stay for your treatment. The video ends. The truth it revealed was worse than any ghost. We weren't being chased out. We were being herded, guided through that maze like livestock. And the thing that terrified me most wasn't its appearance, but its posture, the calm, anticipatory lean of a hunter who knows the prey is running right into the trap. I never showed Mike or Chloe. The lie was the only cage we had to keep that memory in. But some nights, when the house is quiet, I swear I can smell that sour, medicinal decay, and I hear not a drag, but a patient, knowing click, click, click coming from just outside my bedroom door. The thing about obsession is that it starts with a question, a tiny, nagging what if that burrows under your skin. And for me, that question was about Dr. Alistair Glass. My name is Leo, and I was a graduate student in psychiatric history, drowning in dry textbooks and theories when I first read about him. He was a footnote, really. The director of Birchwood Asylum from 1948 to 1957, a period the records mysteriously glossed over. The official line was administrative restructuring, but a single declassified memo mentioned his unorthodox methodologies. That was the hook. The more I dug, the more I found nothing, which only made me dig harder. This wasn't just academic for me. In a life filled with anxiety and second-guessing, the concrete mystery of Glass was an anchor. I needed to know. I petitioned the County Historical Society for weeks, leveraging my university affiliation, pleading it was for my thesis. Finally, they granted me a 6-hour supervised access to the administrative wing, a part of the asylum sealed off but not decaying, kept under lock and key due to liability, not ghosts. The day I went, it was a bright, cold Tuesday morning, the kind of day that feels meant for normal things, which made the whole endeavor feel even more surreal. A bored security guard named Rick let me in through a heavy, polished oak door that contrasted starkly with the ruin I'd seen in pictures of the patient wings. 6 hours, kid. I'll be at the end of the hall. Radio if you need me. Don't touch anything that ain't paper. The air inside was still and cool, smelling of dust and old wood polish, like a forgotten library. It was unnervingly normal. Green linoleum floors, dark wood wainscoting, frosted glass office doors, with names stenciled in black. My destination was at the end of the hall, Dr. A. Glass. The frosted glass was murky, his name barely visible. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat of anticipation, not fear. This was it. Rick unlocked it with a large key from his ring, gave me a nod, and ambled back down the hall, his footsteps echoing. I stepped into a time capsule. A massive, polished oak desk dominated the room. A high-backed leather chair, cracked and weathered, sat behind it. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves were crammed with medical journals and ledgers. A gray, steel filing cabinet stood in the corner. Light filtered through a dirty window, illuminating motes of dust dancing in the air. It was just an old office. The banality was almost disappointing. I started with the filing cabinet, my hands leaving prints in the thick dust. Patient records, intake forms, supply inventories, all chillingly mundane. But in the bottom drawer of his desk, locked and pried open long before I got there, I found it. A large, leather-bound journal. The gold-embossed initials AG faded. My breath caught. I sat in a creaking visitor's chair, not daring to take his, and open it. The handwriting was a frantic, sloping script, ink blotted in places, as if written in great agitation. The early entries were dry, clinical notes. But by 1950, the language shifted. He wrote of spiritual infestations, of malignant energies masquerading as mental distress. His treatments were exorcisms in all but name, prolonged sensory deprivation, ice baths to freeze the possessing entity, and modified electroshock therapy administered not to the temples, but to the limbs, to drive the spirit toward an extremity for expulsion. I read, transfixed, my skin crawling. The room grew colder as I turned the pages, a deep, penetrating chill that my jacket couldn't fight. That's when I first heard the sounds, faint, muffled, like a radio playing in another room. It was a cacophony of screaming, but distant, layered under the calm, measured cadence of a man's voice. I knew that voice. I'd listened to the only surviving recording of a Glass lecture 100 times. It was him. I stood up, my legs shaky. "Rick." I called out, my voice thin. No answer. I went to the door. The knob wouldn't turn. It was locked from the outside. A jolt of pure adrenaline shot through me. I fumbled for the radio on my belt. "Rick, come in." The door's locked. "Rick." Static hissed back at me, empty and loud in the silent room. The muffled screams in the walls seemed to swell, and Dr. Glass's lecture voice grew clearer, though I couldn't make out the words. Then, the calm, articulate voice spoke again, not from the walls, but from right behind me. Subject displays marked anxiety, increased heart rate, pupillary dilation. I whirled around. The high-backed leather chair behind the desk was slowly swiveling to face me, its old springs groaning. It was empty. The desk lamp flickered once, twice, and then the bulb died with a soft ping, leaving the room in deep gray gloom. The journal in my hands felt suddenly unnaturally cold, like holding a block of ice. I looked down. On the page I had been reading, his handwritten words were melting, the ink bleeding and running like black tears. As I watched, frozen in terror, new words formed in a crisp, neat script that was not his frantic hand. Session commences. Subject, Leo. Diagnosis, curiosity. Prognosis, poor. I dropped the journal as if it had burned me. A dry, papery chuckle filled the room, the sound of pages turning rapidly. The screaming in the walls became distinct, individual voices, pleading, cursing, begging for their mothers. I recognized one, a young woman named Eleanor Vance, whose photo I'd seen in an intake file. I threw myself against the door, slamming my shoulder into it. "Help me," I screamed. The voice of Dr. Glass tooted softly, right by my ear. Hysterical vocalization, a common symptom. Suddenly, with a loud click, the door unlocked. I fell into the hallway, scrambling on my hands and knees. Rick was there, looking annoyed. "You all right?" "Heard you yelling. Door sticks sometimes." I couldn't speak. I pointed a trembling finger back into the office. He shined his flashlight inside. The journal was on the floor, open. The pages were blank. The chair was facing the desk. The room was just a room. He shrugged. "Told you, kid. Spooky place. Your 6 hours are up." I fled. I left everything, my notes, my bag, my dignity, in that room. But I took something with me. It started in the car. The radio would cut out, and for a split second, I'd hear his voice. "Subject operates a vehicle." Risk assessment, moderate. I thought it was stress. Then, it happened in my apartment. I'd be making dinner, and the calm clinical observation would whisper from the empty corner. Subject consumes processed carbohydrates. A lack of dietary discipline. I stopped going to class. I stopped sleeping. The voice was a constant, quiet commentary on my every action, my every thought. Subject doubts his sanity. A metacognitive irony. I moved cities, changed my number, saw a therapist who diagnosed me with PTSD and auditory hallucinations. The medication muffled the voice, but never erased it. It's always there, a subcutaneous whisper. And sometimes, like tonight, when I'm exhausted and vulnerable, I catch my reflection in the dark window. Behind me, in the reflection of my own safe modern apartment, I can see the faint outline of that high-backed leather chair. And as I watch, my own reflection's mouth doesn't move, but the voice, clear as day, speaks from the glass. Treatment is ongoing. Compliance is expected. The true horror of Dr. Glass wasn't his barbaric methods. It was his diagnosis. He believed the curious mind itself was a disease to be treated. And, in finding him, I became his perfect, permanent patient. My name is Anya, and my little sister Emma vanished 23 years ago during a family picnic in the woods near the old Birchwood Asylum. She was 7. I was 9. They found one of her red hair ribbons, the one with little white daisies on it, caught on the barbed wire of the asylum's outer fence. Nothing else. No body, no clues, just a void where a bright, laughing girl had been. The case went cold, but our family never thawed. It froze us in place, my parents in a silent, shared grief that pushed me to the periphery, myself growing into an adult shaped around an absence. The official theory was an animal attack or a stranger, but the proximity to Birchwood seeded a darker, more persistent thought in my mind. What if she wandered in? What if she's still in there? Last October, on what would have been her 30th birthday, I decided I had to know. This wasn't urban exploration. It was a seance. My tools weren't cameras and flashlights, but her favorite childhood teddy bear, Mr. Bumbles, missing one eye and matted from years of her love, and a locket with her picture. It felt foolish, clutching a teddy bear as I parked my car miles away and hiked through the dense, silent woods at dusk, but it was the only thing that felt right. I avoided the monstrous main building. My research, an obsession in itself, pointed me to a separate, smaller structure a few hundred yards into the woods, the so-called junior sanctuary, or more accurately, the children's ward. It looked like a storybook cottage gone wrong, with boarded-up windows and a caved-in portion of the roof. The air here was different. Outside the main asylum, the world was cold and silent. Here, as I pushed open the sagging front door, a wave of warmth hit me, carrying a scent that stopped me dead in my tracks. It was sweet, cloyingly so, like cheap candy, powdered sugar, and the faint, clean smell of baby shampoo. It was utterly, terrifyingly wrong. The place was a museum of arrested childhood. Small iron beds with faded, cartoon print sheets were neatly made. A row of tiny shoes, Mary Jane's little boots, sat lined up against one wall. In the playroom, wooden blocks were stacked in a precarious tower, and a large rocking horse, its paint flaking to reveal gray wood beneath, stood sentinel in the center. The silence was a held breath. I pulled Mr. Bumbles close to my chest, the familiar, musty scent of him a tiny anchor in this sea of wrongness. "Emma," I called, my voice a dry crack in the stillness. "It's Anya. I'm here." For a long moment, nothing. Then, from the playroom, the rocking horse began to move. Not a creaking sway for my footsteps, but a deliberate back-and-forth motion, as if an invisible child rode it with fervor. A giggle echoed, light and airy. Then another from a different corner. Within seconds, the room was filled with the sound of children's laughter, overlapping, joyous, and pure. A sob caught in my throat. It wasn't scary, it was heartbreaking. Was this her? Were they all here, lost but happy? Then I felt it. A small, cold pressure slipped into my empty hand. I looked down. There was nothing there. but I felt the distinct, delicate shape of fingers, a child's fingers, curling around my own. The grip was firm, insistent. A wave of emotion, so powerful it made me dizzy, washed over me. Hope, a desperate, blinding hope. This was a sign. This was her. The cold hand tugged me gently, leading me away from the playroom, down a short, dark hallway toward a single door marked in faded letters. Quiet room. My mind, clinging to reason, whispered that this was where they put the unruly ones. But my heart screamed that my sister was on the other side, that she needed me to be brave, to follow. The cold hand gave no room for hesitation. It pulled, and I went. Mr. Bumbles clutched onto my other arm. The door swung open, silently, onto absolute darkness. The sweet smell vanished instantly, replaced by the choking stench of stale sickness, soil, and something metallic. The laughter behind me cut off as if a switch had been flipped. In the void, the small hand yanked me forward with impossible, brutal strength. I stumbled into the pitch black, and the door slammed shut behind me with a final, resonant thud. I was sealed in. I fumbled for my phone, my hands trembling, so violently I dropped it. The screen lit up as it hit the floor, casting a sickly blue puddle of light. I wasn't in a room. I was in a padded cell. The walls and ceiling were covered in torn, stained, moldering leather padding. And I was not alone. The children's voices returned, but the joy was gone. In its place was a flat, unison monotone, chanting a countdown. 10, 9, 8. The voices came from all around, from the very walls. I scrambled for my phone, my fingers slipping. 7, 6, 5. I grabbed it, sweeping the light around the room. The beam caught them. Small, shadowy figures, no more than suggestions of density in the air, lined the perimeter of the cell. They were holding hands, forming a silent, staring circle. For 3-2, in the center of their circle, dangling from a rusted hook in the ceiling, was a tattered strip of red cloth. My light fixed on it. It was a hair ribbon, faded, filthy, but unmistakable. The little white daisies were just gray smudges now. 1. The moment they reached 1, the guttural, raw, adult scream that tore through the cell didn't come from one of the shadows. It came from everywhere, from the padding, the floor, the hook, from inside my own skull. It was a sound of ultimate agony and despair. My phone flashlight flared once, blindingly bright, in a final surge before dying completely. In that last fraction of a second, the scene seared itself onto my retinas. The shadow children were no longer formless. Their small faces were now turned toward me, blank and pale, with dark, empty holes for eyes and mouths open in silent, endless screams. And the ribbon on the hook wasn't just hanging. It was spinning slowly, as if just dropped, a grotesque parody of a child's twirling dance. Then darkness and silence, more absolute than any I have ever known, swallowed me whole. I don't know how long I was in there, screaming, pounding on the door, whispering to Emma, to Mr. Bumbles, to myself. I was found the next morning by a park ranger, delirious and dehydrated, outside the main asylum gates, miles from the children's ward. I had Mr. Bumbles in a death grip. They said I'd gotten lost and suffered a psychotic break. I let them believe it, because the truth is worse than never finding her. The truth is that the thing in that place knew what I needed most. It knew how to craft hope from the relics of my love. Those weren't the ghosts of lost children. They were anglerfish, and the memory of my sister's laughter was their glowing lure. And the final devastating revelation from that last flash of light wasn't just a ribbon. It was the realization that the small, cold hand that led me in didn't belong to one of them. It felt different. It felt specific, familiar. In my deepest, most secret heart, a part of me still believes, with a certainty that chills my soul, that the hand that pulled me into that dark was Emma's. But whether it was leading me to salvation or helping to secure the next meal for the things that kept her, is a question that will haunt me until I join her in that silent, smiling circle. My name is Kieran, and I was the arrogant one. Where the others came to Birchwood out of grief or obsession or dares, my team and I came with a purpose, to own it. We were filmmakers, or at least we desperately wanted to be. And in the age of viral content, we saw the asylum not as a tomb of tragedies, but as a soundstage. Our idea was genius, or so we thought. A 24-hour live stream from the very heart of the building, the central ward, using multiple high-definition cameras, night vision, and sensitive audio equipment. We would be the definitive word on Birchwood. Leo, not the same Leo from the second story, a different one. My sound guy had a parabolic microphone that could pick up a whisper from 100 yards. Mara, my cinematographer, had a thermal imaging camera. I was the director, the host, the face of the project. Our confidence was our shield. We were draped in cables and battery packs, a bubble of technology that we believed made us untouchable. We weren't ghost hunters with broken equipment. We were professionals. How tragically naive that sounds now. We set up our central hub in the asylum's old communal day room, a vast, high-ceiling chamber with decayed couches and shattered windows. We lit it with powerful LED panels, creating a jarring island of sterile, white light in the sea of decay. The stream went live at 8 p.m., and for the first few hours, it was a bore. We narrated empty rooms, pointed out rusted restraints, made forced jokes. Our viewer count was modest. Then, around 1 a.m., things changed. Leo, wearing his high-end headphones, stiffened. "I'm getting voices," he whispered, his fingers dancing on the mixer. Clear voices. Room 12B. A man praying. He patched it into the stream. The audio was crystal clear, a desperate, sobbing recitation of the Lord's Prayer. The live chat exploded. Mara panned her main camera down the long, north corridor. "Kieran," she said, her voice tight. "End of the hall. Tell me what you see." I looked at her monitor. There, at the very limit of the light, stood a figure in a stark white orderly uniform, standing perfectly still, facing us. Not moving, not approaching, just watching. Our viewer count tripled. We were ecstatic. This was the gold we'd come for. The next 2 hours were a masterclass in escalating dread. Leo's audio picked up more voices, fragmented conversations, arguments, a woman singing a lullaby, all from empty, dark rooms. The orderly never moved. He became a fixture, a statue. We named him Walter in the chat, making him a character. Our arrogance blinded us to the reality. We were not in control of the narrative. The shift was subtle at first. The temperature in our lit circle dropped sharply, though the rest of the room remained warm. Our live stream feed to the platform glitched occasionally, showing a static-filled, distorted version of our own faces for a second before correcting. Then, at 3:17 a.m., Leo screamed. A piercing, digital shriek, a high-frequency tone mixed with a distorted, commanding voice, erupted in his headphones. He tore them off, blood trickling from his left ear. The voice had said, "Cease transmission." Our main feed to the website died. The live indicator went red. But Mara's backup recorder, a solid-state device not linked to the internet, kept rolling. We were no longer broadcasting to the world, but something was still recording. That's when we heard the squeak, not the dragging shuffle of a patient, but the crisp, clean sound of rubber-soled shoes on linoleum. Professional, purposeful. It came from the dark hallway behind our setup, the one we hadn't covered. Mara, her hands shaking, slowly swiveled the main camera on its tripod. On her monitor, we saw our own terrified faces, lit from the front by our LEDs. And behind us, emerging from the blackness of the corridor, were figures. Dozens of them. Not the shambling ghosts of lore, but orderly rows of patients in gray gowns and staff in white uniforms, their features blurred and indistinct, like water-damaged photographs. They walked in unison, silently, surrounding our little island of light. They showed no aggression. They simply stared at our equipment, at the cameras, with a terrifying, focused intensity. Then, the calm, clear voice of the male orderly, the one from Leo's headphones, spoke aloud from the crowd. "You are patients now. Your treatment is observation." They moved past us, through us it seemed, as we stood frozen in terror. They didn't touch us. They touched our gear. With deft, practiced motions, they began dismantling our setup. They took our cameras off the tripods and turned them around, aiming the lenses directly at our faces. They repositioned our own LED lights to illuminate us from harsh, unflattering angles. They set up Leo's parabolic microphone on a stand, pointing it at our trembling lips. We were paralyzed not by any force, but by the sheer, incomprehensible wrongness of it. We were becoming a set piece in our own show. One of the blurred orderly figures approached Mara's still recording backup camera. It leaned down, its smudged face filling the frame for a second, and then with a cold, precise finger, it pressed the button marked stream. A small, red light on the device, one we never used, illuminated. They had re-established a broadcast. But to where? The final thing I saw, before the primary LED was turned to fully blind us, was the figure holding up a small slate board to the camera now pointed at us. On it, written in neat, clinical handwriting, was Birchwood Ongoing Study, Subject Group Delta, Documentarians. Day 1. That was, according to our lost timeline, over 400 days ago. We are still here. The lights never go out. The cameras never stop rolling. They bring us water and bland, tasteless nutrients. They change memory cards, adjust microphones. We sleep in shifts under their constant observation. Leo's ear never healed properly. He flinches at sounds only he can hear. Mara has stopped speaking altogether, her eyes forever fixed on the red recording light of the main camera. I am the only one who still talks, who still tries to plead, to reason, to curse our captors. They document it all. My emotional deterioration is, I suspect, their favorite data set. The true horror is not the fear or the confinement. It is the understanding. We came to document a haunting, to package its echoes for consumption. But Birchwood wasn't haunted by echoes. It is, a functioning institution with a singular, warped purpose. The perpetual study of the human psyche under conditions of supernatural stress. The patients and orderlies aren't ghosts trapped in the past. They are the eternal staff and subjects of an experiment that never ended. And we, with our arrogance and our technology, didn't break the story. We volunteered ourselves as fresh specimens. Sometimes, in the endless white light, I see reflections in the camera lenses. Not our own, but the faces of viewers from wherever our stream is being sent. Pale, indistinct shapes, watching with a passive, endless curiosity. We are not being haunted. We are the haunt. We are the content. And the broadcast, I know with a certainty that has replaced my soul, will continue in perpetuity, long after our bodies have wasted away to dust, because the study must go on. The treatment is observation, and you are all, in your own way, part of the clinical team.